Today marks 700 days since Israel launched its war on Gaza in response to the October 2023 terrorist attack by Hamas. And Israel has only expanded its assault as it seeks to take control of Gaza City. Israeli missiles leveled a 14-story apartment building in Gaza City today. Its military now claims to control 40% of the city, where about 1 million people lived prior to the war. Israel warns it will intensify operations there until Hamas agrees to end the war on Israel's terms. Now, Hamas released video of 2 hostages today who have been held since the beginning of the war. In it, one of the hostages says he's in captivity in Gaza City with several others and that he's afraid of being killed by Israel's offensive. Canada has condemned Israel's offensive into Gaza City and said it intends to join several other countries in recognizing a Palestinian state this month at the United Nations General Assembly. Bob Rae is the permanent representative of Canada to the United Nations, and he joins me now. Bob Rae, it's good to see you again, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, David. Good to be with you, too.
So the 80th session of the UN General Assembly begins next week. As part of the process, I believe around September 22nd, that's when Mark Carney's going to be there and when Canada is going to formally recognize a Palestinian state. What message do you think Canada is sending with that move? What impact do you hope it has?
Well, first of all, we're doing it, what I would say is in very good company. We've worked with a number of countries to develop a common approach, and I think that's been a very constructive process. We've been working over the summer with members of many other countries in the region, including obviously the Palestinian Authority. And I think the message is, look, we're going back 75 years to the end of the British Mandate. The United Nations passed a resolution, Canada was part of it, calling for 2 states. And we know that out of that and out of battle and war came 1 state, but we still haven't seen the recognition and the fulsome ability to get to a sovereign state of state for the Palestinian people. So I think, frankly, this is something that we think is important as a way of contributing to a resolution of the Gaza conflict, but a way also of really trying to emphasize the need for both sides to recognize each other. 2 states, democratic, respecting the rights of their minorities, respecting the rights of each other, fully recognizing each other. It's time for a really fresh start. And I think with a lot of help and assistance, I think Canada's participating in this group that's moving forward. I think is going to be a constructive step.
You know, there's still battle, obviously. There's still war, all of it.
Yes.
This most recent cycle sparked by an act of terrorism. Canada and other countries are going to be doing this, but, you know, Israel, it's begun an operation to essentially take over Gaza City. It controls about 40% of it now, and it's approved more West Bank settlements. I mean, the notion of recognizing a state, it doesn't seem as though there is capacity to have a state with the actions that Israel is doing. Like we've talked about this before, there is no support in the Netanyahu government, it seems, for a Palestinian state.
Well, we can't let that prevent the Palestinian people from being able to exercise their rights. The war in Gaza is not with the Palestinian Authority. The war in Gaza is with Hamas. We've made it very clear that Hamas is not going to participate in the governance of a Palestinian state. We've made it very clear that that's not the picture that we see. What we see is a Palestinian Authority that has actually been in place since 1993. Canada has had diplomatic relations with the Palestinian Authority since that time. And we have had an office in Ramallah, which I personally have visited on a number of occasions. We are taking steps, the situation to the next step. But the fact that Israel has not allowed the Palestinian Authority to get the taxes and the revenues that it needs, that it's entitled to under law, and other things like the expansion of settlements, which we consider to be illegal, we can't allow that to see people to say, well, you're not allowed to become a state because you're not a state. And you say, well, who's preventing you from becoming a state? I mean, that's you know the old definition of chutzpah is when you go into a court after you've killed your parents and say, I'm an orphan, please, you can't put me in jail. I mean, it doesn't work to take it that way.
Right.
We entirely support the state of Israel in its fight against terrorism. We entirely support the state of Israel in its aspirations to be able to provide a homeland, as many people have said over many generations, for the Jewish people. We also think there needs to be a home, and yes, a homeland for the Palestinian people.
You mentioned that you have diplomatic relations with the Palestinian Authority. They have not had elections in a long time, and there's reasons for that. They felt that if they had them in certain areas, Hamas may have won those elections, given the tenor and tone of things at the time, and they would have been replaced as they were in Gaza, which would have caused a series of problems. But I know one of the conditions of Canada recognizing a Palestinian state was an agreement by the Palestinian Authority to, at some point, have free and fair elections. I mean, I know you've gotten the commitment to that as a notion and as a concept as a country, but do we have a sense of when and what a reasonable timeline and how quickly something like that could actually happen?
Well, obviously, part of it is determined by the state of war in Gaza, because the Gazans are Palestinians and they will be entitled to vote in an election. So, I mean, there are things that in the process of time which are beyond the control of the Palestinian Authority, still will have to continue to be worked and discussed and worked out. But again, this is something we're discussing actively with the British and the French and many other countries, the Norwegians and the Swedes, who've already recognized them. Many countries in Europe have recognized. Most of the countries in the rest of the world have recognized the Palestinians. I mean, it's not as if this is a new concept or a new idea. And yes, we believe profoundly that there should be a democracy in both countries. And we believe profoundly that people should have the right to vote in both countries. But there are still differences to be worked out. But I don't think that should prevent us from taking the logical next step. And I think that's what we're working towards when it comes to the events on September the 22nd.
There's a lot of steps between today and when and if that election ever happens, and a lot of things that have to happen in between, including the stabilization of Gaza if the fighting does come to an end. And I know there's some talk of a UN-endorsed reconstruction plan with an international security force. But the Guardian and others are reporting this is the subject of some pretty intense negotiations, because the United States obviously is backing Israel in a way that some of the other allies are not as emphatic on. What is the nature of those discussions at the UN in terms of where things are, the ability to get in there and set up a technocratic government and provide some sort of structure to Gaza in whatever comes after the fighting?
Well, life is a step-by-step process, but usually it helps if you have a vision of where you want to go. And the first step has got to be a ceasefire, a comprehensive ceasefire. The first step has to be the release of the hostages. We don't know exactly how many are still alive, but we know that the question of the hostages has to be completely resolved, saving as many lives as possible. In that circumstance, people who've been living in horrendous conditions for a very, very long time. We then have to move towards the steps of rebuilding Gaza and dealing with the extent of the humanitarian crisis, which still continues. My information as of today is that as many as 300 kids have died of malnutrition, and that as much as a third of the population of Gaza is undernourished. And that is an intolerable situation, the control of which, frankly, is entirely within the hands of the government of Israel. They're the ones who are controlling the delivery of aid. They're the ones who are preventing some aid from being provided. They're preventing many UN agencies like OCHA and others from participating in the delivery of aid. That's their responsibility. And I'm hoping that we will be able to get to a better place in all these issues. It's very difficult. The government of Israel is still determined to find an exclusively military solution to the problem, but I don't think it's going to be that easy, because so much of what's involved is political and is caught up with this question of the aspirations of the Palestinian people, which cannot be, in our view, really cannot be denied any longer. And I do think that the creation of a Palestinian state in the right circumstances will actually do more for the security of the state of Israel than anything else one can possibly imagine. It will increase the level of support from all the other countries in the Middle East. It will provide for much greater security, much greater possibilities in terms of trade, economic development. All kinds of possibilities open up, none of which will be possible as long as the status of the Palestinian people is in question, and as long, frankly, as people are not able to express themselves politically the way in which we would expect under the Charter of the United Nations people would be allowed to do. And that's, I think, the reason why Canada has taken the position to join with others in moving forward on this.
Well, when you do move forward on this, I mean, a lot of people, ever since the Prime Minister made the announcement, they've expressed themselves politically. There's a lot of people who will look at what's going to happen on the 22nd and say this is long overdue, and there's going to be a lot of people in Canada who are going to be outraged by this and say that Canada and others are essentially rewarding the act of terrorism that Hamas committed.
We're not.
That is just what I know. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that as a final point.
I'm not going to give you the luxury of the last word on this.
Oh no, I want you to have the last word. I want you to have the last word.
I think it's emphatically important to say that this is exactly the opposite of rewarding Hamas. What is Hamas' objective? Hamas' objective is the obliteration of the state of Israel. It's the end of the state of Israel. And that's the objective of Hamas. What this is about is allowing for security to be created where two states live side by side, which is something that Hamas can't stand. Because in their view, Israel has no legitimacy. In Canada's view, Israel has legitimacy to be a people. It is a people. They are a country. They have a nation state. Mm-hmm. It's time for us to provide the same security, recognition, and dignity to the Palestinian people. And if we succeed in this objective, do you know who the most unhappy people will be? Those who preach hate, those who preach destruction, and those who preach absolutism. And by that, I mean Hamas.
Bob Rae, I wanted to get that response from you. That's what I was building to. I was not trying to sneak in a statement there at the end. So thank you. We appreciate the time, and thanks for being available. Good luck with the important work over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.